this is Preeti for Rubbernecker, and today I have a technique video, and this is called the spotlight stamping. So I'm starting off here with the craft cardstock, and I'm going to stamp using white pigment ink these beautiful flowers from the Rubbernecker Beautiful Wines stamp set, which released this month. So I'm just creating a background using this white pigment ink on the craft cardstock. So I'm starting off with the largest flower and then building into the smaller flowers. Now this is a layering stamp set, but I'm not really layering these flowers for the background itself or the pattern that I'm creating on this. So what is spotlight stamping? Is basically you create a spotlight or you create a certain focal image that stands out. So the background itself could be gray or black. Usually when you do spotlight, when you think about spotlight, that's what it is, that everything else is black and gray, and then you pay attention to a focal image, which is a smaller image, and it's like you imagine on a stage and there's a spotlight hitting someone, everything else is dark and the light is just on that particular image. So it's a very similar concept. I'm not doing everything black or everything dull, but I'm kind of creating patterns of the same images that I'm going to use, which I will spotlight on each of these cards. So we're making 3 cards today. So continuing here, you can see I've already gone ahead and created the pattern. So I want to fill up this a bit more. So a good way to add fillers anytime you're making patterns is to just use a white gel pen or any gel pen, black or whatever. I prefer using white depending on what I'm doing. Like for this time here, I'm using the white gel pen. I've just filled up the empty spaces using the gel pen. So I've already gone ahead and stamped and inked the Bloomin Vine flowers in different colors. I've used some yellow shades and some red shades, and I've layered, and I have not fussy cut actually, this comes with a die cut, and I've die cut those images. And now I want to just build up a little bouquet of flowers in this corner of this craft that we created. And all I'm doing is I'm stamping the 2 stems that comes with the stamp set in green. And now I'm just going to play and fiddle around to see what's the best composition for these flowers and the way it would look beautiful. So you can see the pop of color. So the background is exactly the same flowers. What I've done is I've not stamped it with the layers, but because it's white pigment ink onto that craft cardstock, and these flowers by themselves, a single layer by themselves, look beautiful as well. So I've taken that as an advantage, and I have created that pattern in the background. Again, the background is exactly the same flowers, but I'm giving the focus of the same flowers with some colored images on top of that background that I created. So that kind of creates a spotlight to the flowers that we created the backgrounds with. I hope that makes sense with what I'm doing. So now once I've done the composition, I'm just going to adhere some of them with some pop dots and some, not pop dots, some pop tape, foam tape, and some directly with glue. It takes me a while to figure out compositions of where I want to lay the flowers and stuff like that, so I didn't really show it. But that's how I decided to do. And now once I was done laying them, I wanted to add a little bit of a sentiment, and I didn't want to pop the sentiment up, so I wanted to directly stamp it onto the card base because I just wanted that flower to stand out as the only thing on this particular card. So I'm just adding the sentiment with some just regular black ink, and I'm just going to do a little bit of additional additional blinging of this card, I suppose. So I'm just adding a few these are not clear sequins, I think they're called iridescent sequins. That's what they are, because again, I don't want to take anything away from that focal image or the spotlight image. So that and then once I had done adhering it, I just put this on a top folding white note card, and that pretty much was done. That was the look of that card. Now for the second card here, I've taken a lighter shade of gray cardstock. So it's not really a white cardstock, it's actually a gray cardstock. And I'm going to use this Autumn Fire stamp set, and I'm going to stamp these flower. This is also a layering stamp set, and I'm going to layer this stamp. I'm going to create a background using this stamp set in the shades of gray. So I'm using the Color Fuse gray shades. I'm starting off with the lightest ink, and that's the first layer all built up and created a pattern. And now I'm going to lay the second layer onto this gray and the next shade of gray, and then I'm going to stamp it. I'm going to repeat the same thing over and over again for all the flowers, but there are 4 layers to this flower, but I'm going to do only 3 layers and leave the last layer off. So the reason for that is because the last layer, if I were to lay it, it's quite dark. The darkest color is quite dark. It's very close to black, and I didn't want that. So I skipped the 4th layer, or the darkest color, and I also skipped the center of the flower. So I didn't really stamp the center of the flower either. So once I was done layering all, I just took my heat gun and I heat set it. When the color absorbs into the paper, these colors do fade back quite a bit, and that's absolutely what I wanted, and I really like that because the color is soaking to the grit of the paper and they do fade back a bit, and that really looks nice. So I've taken the same flowers and I have stamped it using multiple colors, multiple shades of inks from Color Fuse inks to create this beautiful mum's flower. And I've also cut some leaves, and I've already gone ahead and embossed and cut the sentiment, and the sentiment reads, I think it reads, "Thank you so much," and I'm creating a composition of the flowers on top of this, and I'm just going to adhere them as well, with some with foam and some directly with some glue, liquid glue onto the surface. And now you can see that it's, again, the background is the same flowers, but the focus is on that, the spotlight is on that flower in the middle. So you can really change the background, change the paper and the color that you're using in order to create your backgrounds for your spotlight images, or to create your focal images. And that's what I've done. The previous one was craft with white, and then this one is actually gray with some light gray base with dark gray inks. And I'm going to do the same thing using the same sequins. I'm just going to add a few scattering of these sequins around the flowers that I have just put. And you can see, even though that's a darker background, even though it's gray, it's still, those flowers pop out, or they stand out in that background. And I'm again taking a white note card and I'm going to tear this on it, and that pretty much completes the second card. The third card, I thought I'll do a little bit of a Christmassy card, but I'm doing a very different Christmas colors. I'm doing a little bit of a modern colors, not the usual traditional reds and greens. Rather, I'm using a little bit of a different color palette. So what I'm doing is I measured the stamp set, and the stamp set is it's called the Christmas Be Filled, and I've measured the stamp set, and it's about 4 inches tall. So I'm making a few blocks of colors. So I've chosen 4 colors of Copic markers, a BG color, which is blue green color that you see me doing right now, and then I've chosen an RV color, which is a red violet color, and this one I think is RV17, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm creating blocks of 1 inches, what you call the width, 1 inch tall blocks of colors. So I'm just doing an RV color, a BG color, blue green color, and the next color I've chosen is R0 R color. I think this one is, I want to say it's R32, a red color. So it's kind of a lighter pink. No, actually, this is RV21. So it's not as deep as RV17 that we laid earlier. It's a little more lighter shade. It's more corally than pink actually. And then I'm ending it off with an orange shade, and this is YR. I want to say 17. I will put the numbers in the description box below so you know what colors I used. So now that I've used up all of those, I've made those blocks, I'm going to cut these blocks off. And again, when I'm cutting these blocks, I'm not really keeping them all to an inch tall. Some of them I've cut them down a little, little thinner, and some 1 inch, and a couple maybe a little more than 1 inch as well. Because when I was coloring, I didn't color exactly 1 inch. It was a little more than an inch for a few of the colors. I'm making sure that my stamp will fit into those 4 blocks that we created. And now I'm just going to glue this down onto that copy paper that I used underneath to protect my work surface. So I'm just adding that just with glue, and then I'm just going to cut the edges off so I can put this paper into my MISTI. So once I have it cut down, I'm going to just put it into my MISTI, and when I put it in, afterwards I realized that I had not taken the black foam from underneath it, and I couldn't stamp it. So you'll see eventually I'll take the black foam out as well. And I just removed the backing of this cling stamp. The Rubbernecker has the Rubbernecker. As you know, it is. Some of the stamps are rubber stamps, so they do have a cling back, but you have to remove the paper that is stuck on it before you can adhere it to your stamping platform. So now I just removed that black foam from the MISTI, and I'm going to stamp this sentiment onto the blocks that we created using some Versamark ink, and I'm going to emboss it using white embossing powder. And once I'm done embossing it, I am going to cut each of these strips to a thinner strip, and you'll see that once it's all done. So now it's just time to start snipping and taking it off this extra paper. I really don't need this paper anymore. The reason I used that copy paper was to keep these what do you call these blocks that we created together while we are stamping. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to separate these as well. But before that, I want to cut this down to a narrower strip. So I want to just take the extras away. So I'm just putting it into my my paper trimmer and lining up and just cutting a longer shape, or I'm just kind of creating it into a narrower label. Now I'm just cutting off, snipping them all separate. So they're all separated from each other, and all I'm going to do is now create a background. So the focal here is the sentiment and not the images. So what I did is I just chose a leaf branch from the branch set 1, and I'm going to stamp this using black VersaFine ink. So again, as I said, the focus is on the sentiment and not on the image. So you can literally take any sentiment that you may have, and you don't have to make it into these kind of blocks. You can even just stamp it onto a colored cardstock over a black and white background, or and then you can create that focal image or the spotlight image for your card. So I'm just kind of fiddling and figuring out how I want this to be laid. And then once I was satisfied, I'm just going to take some foam tape, and I'm going to adhere these onto this. And while I'm adhering these panels, I'm giving a very slight gap between each of those panels, though I'm separating them from each other, but yet you can read them pretty well. It's not hard to read what exactly the sentiment reads. So that pretty much completed the third card. Once I was done laying these panels, or these blocks, these color blocks, I was done with this card, and then I just added a few gemstones in very similar colors. so that it could enhance the colors of the blocks, or the sentiment blocks that I just created for this card. And you can see here, these are the colorful gemstones that I have, and I'm picking a few colors that match the cardstock. So some blue greens and some lighter greens and some pink shades, and then once I was done, I just adhered that to a top folding card, and that pretty much finished the third card. I hope you enjoyed this spotlight stamping today with me, and please subscribe to the Rubbernecker channel, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.